mundo sabe que o teu amor eu sou doente. Farei o meu melhor
Oh,
para
mate,
te
what the fuck?
ver sempre na frente.
This is probably why, though. This is probably why it takes 20 years.
Me levar e sem receio.
Hello everyone, welcome to VA90 once again. This is the last part of the Rifle's perspective. Please check out the other videos down below. Don't forget to leave a massive like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, Carrega Benfica.
All right, everybody, I got Patrick here, which you might recognize from the first time we did the Rivals Perspective. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect.
Back again.
Yeah, so so it was quite fun. We had you at the beginning and of the Sporting, Braga, and Porto review. Sporting were the team that was in a lot of flux in recent years. And even going into the season, based on our last chat, you're looking to kind of see if there's some stability or, Ruben Amorim can build some consistency on this team and start building something with Sporting, right? And here we are a few months later, the guy kind of, he built, he finished his construction job and he conquered kind of thing it looks like at this stage. You guys are looking quite pretty. So I've been dying to ask you, Patrick, because you've had a rough go these last 18 years, right? How are you feeling today? I know it's kind of hard to kind of hold back the giddiness, but are you feeling good right now?
Yeah, I mean, with each game that passes each week, it's hard not to steer away from the excitement that's brewing. And sometimes it is important to remember that it is a crop of young players. We're not even talking about 22, 23, 24-year-olds. We're talking about 18, 19-year-olds, 20. So these are players that this is their first taste of actual football, let alone football at the highest level domestically. So we do have to still play with like ice our mood a little bit, so to speak. But when you're 10 points clear, it's hard not to be excited. But I think the fans are pretty much like the players. We're just taking it game by game. We're very proud of what's been achieved so far this season. It's certainly more than what we would have expected, but credit to the work that's been put in by the manager, who's really managed to install this philosophy that I don't know if many of you remember back in the first video that we did. That's what I said. Sporting that's what they should be looking at, finding an identity, a way to play, and we've done that with the three centre backs and the flying wing backs. Finally, Sporting have settled upon something that they could call their own. And challenge teams that way. I don't think many teams have been able to really cope with that superiority positionally that Sporting have presented. And it's been great to see. It's been great to see a lot of the youngsters, come together and produce what's so far been a very special season. Hopefully we can obviously take it to the very end and lift the trophy at the end of it. It will be a great moment for the club and for the players and for everything the club stands for in terms of bringing players through the academy. It will be a real positive response. I know obviously Porto and Benfica have stolen the limelight a bit in terms of academy and selling players and being the flagship for Portuguese talent of late. But I think this is a very positive response from Sporting, and hopefully something that with brains from those higher up in the hierarchy, something that Sporting can build upon and really establish themselves as title challengers every single year off the back of this season.
Yeah, man, and it is one of those things, and it's a good point you make, where there was a very long period of time where Sporting dominated that youth academy and It was, you saw that the talent that was coming up at Sporting, it always felt like they couldn't figure out what to do with the talent at times. Like it seemed like they had a lot of good pieces, but they couldn't get those pieces to work for a title run. And then in recent years, it felt almost like they were losing that academy. And yes, Benfica's done very well, and Porto recently's done very well. And so it's interesting how like it almost feels like overnight. It isn't that it ever went away; it was always there, but you just weren't hearing about it in the last few years. And it's kind of like a better version of the year we signed Rui Vitória as a manager. We had a very rough start, but he built off Renat Sunch, Nelson Semedo, Lindelof, these young kids that came up. And once they were clicking, it made such a difference. But it seems like you guys are not only having that event happen, but having it happen, from beginning to so far. The idea is beginning to end is what you'd like to eventually see. And the one thing I will say from a sporting games that I've watched where they've even struggled, it's more of even their difficult games, it's more a never say die kind of mentality where they keep
Yeah.
fighting and hustling and kind of where in the past, and I've had Benfica, I see Benfica sometimes at times doing this now where they, the game's not going their way and they kind of taper off. Whereas if the game's not going for Sporting, they seem to kind of find that extra bit of energy. Ruben Amorim seems to find a way to motivate the players, and I think the players are very self-motivated. And I think there's two things that can happen when you get to a stage like this. Either it's too much pressure and they break under the pressure, or they feed off it and use it to make themselves stronger. And it seems like the latter is what's been happening in recent weeks, right? They're kind of using that pressure and that advantage and kind of going, let's push a bit harder and make the gap bigger and bigger, right? Who would you say, like, out of all these young kids, who's the youngest kid, like, out of the group that's kind of come up? Who's the one that's either surprised you or you've been the happiest to see that's kind of really been shining for you?
In terms of, I wouldn't say I'm surprised because I always knew the talent that he possessed, but I think the best performer for me has definitely been Nunminj at left back. Yeah, he's a fantastic. He's only 18. It's hard to believe he just turned 18. Not many months ago, like at the start of the season. So to see him, he's got like such maturity. I think he's someone who, even off the back of this season, could comfortably. Well, it'd help him if he had like an extra season at Sporting, but it wouldn't surprise me if a big club comes in and takes him straight away. He's been that good. Also on the other side, Pedro Porro, who obviously comes in on loan from Man City. He's had it rough on loan in Spain, clubs like Valladolid, and he's not. Before joining Sporting, he hadn't quite found his feet, or really found a way to show why Manchester City bought him all those years back. But I think now at Sporting, he's really done. He's really excelled really well. He's another one who's 22. So a very bright future ahead of him. Probably, some may say, probably easily like the best right back in the league right now. And if Sporting can snatch him up for €8 million has been agreed by the two clubs in the loan deal, that'll be a fantastic deal for Sporting to take on. I think those two, there's obviously so many to choose from, but those two have been two players that have really, I don't think Sporting would work quite the same if it wasn't for them out on those flanks.
And it is a very different environment we're in today in terms of what it would mean for Sporting to win. And yes, it's always important to win a title, but to go a bit back in time, the last time when Sporting won, the Portuguese Liga wasn't doing as well as the league. And winning and I don't know, for people that are younger that watch the show might not know this, but when you go back to that 2002 title that Sporting won, winning the Portuguese Liga meant going to the playoffs of the Champions League. You didn't even get a group stage seeding. It's a lot different now where the standings are for Liga NOS, and there's a huge advantage of going not only straight to the group stage, because obviously you're going to be in the group stage, you're going to play quite a bit of games, but also in this day and age, the money that a club gets. And Sporting, where I don't want to be negative, but I felt prior to the season we're teetering in a very dangerous slope where there was issues with, let's say, finances, players, all these kind of issues going on, that if they didn't get their act together, you kind of felt like it was only getting harder to one day build on something, right? And this kind of potential title win, it's obviously not done, but this potential title win for Sporting, in my opinion, could give a huge revival to their club, because in addition to, obviously, you're going to have some clubs that are going to pay transfer fees to pick up players, and that there's some initial money there. But when you're playing right away into the group stage, it helps you sign players. Like if a player's debating about playing for Benfica or Porto, and we're playing the group stage of Champions League, it can make a difference, because if you're going to be there, they might sign with you versus another team. So Sporting will have that ability on the negotiations table, plus knowing that they're going to get this huge paycheck anyways, might give them the ability to kind of invest a bit more and try to make this more of a longer lasting period for the club, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's a good moment. Looking at the rivalry between Sporting, Benfica, and Porto as well, because I feel like, if Sporting can guarantee this, then they sort of give themselves a little bit of an upper hand going into next season as well, and continuing on with success. Because obviously Benfica have invested a lot of money this season, and part of me feels like the plan would have been they would have been expecting to qualify for the Champions League, having beaten PAOK, but they didn't. So already I feel like there might be a gap, a financial hole there somewhere. And if Benfica don't follow it up this year with Champions League qualification, then it'll be interesting to see how they cover the ground that they would have expected to be a Champions League club. Porto also are another club who we all know aren't the best financially. They'll be needing that money. So I think it'll be an interesting one to see how Sporting. It'll be interesting to see how Sporting utilise this moment with going into a new season a little bit more relaxed financially, while the others have to be a bit more intelligent with how they use their money, perhaps sell one or two star players. I think, as you say, with more players potentially coming in, obviously some will probably go out to bigger clubs as well. If Sporting are smart about this, then they can really propel themselves right up to the top, and start building what could be like a very prosperous time for Sporting. But there's a lot of football still to be played, and obviously it's important that Sporting win the title first, and then use that as a launch pad for future successes.
Yeah, and obviously there's the product on the pitch, and then that's a huge factor for every club. But then also behind the scenes, the mechanism running the club can have such influence and impact. And the term that a lot of Benfiquistas say, the whole Vietnam term, which back in the early 2000s, that Benfica went through with issues with presidents and things of sort, really destabilized the club in the late 90s into the early 2000s, and it took a while for us to kind of wake up from that struggle. Sporting themselves are going through more recent struggles with board directors, presidents, everything that's happened. I don't want to go through the whole litany, but there was still kind of this like Vietnam feeling where there was still a bit of infighting. Do you think, should Sporting win this title, do you think this is going to start creating more stability at the club as a collective, like for Varandas and the board of directors, things of sorts, say, okay, we got to win, we got something to work with, let's build? Do you think the fans will be a little bit more united, or do you still feel there's still that division that's going to continue on? Because I know that's been an issue the last few years.
Yeah, I think. I think Sporting right throughout history has always been a bit divided. So it'll be difficult for anyone to really unify that, because I don't know, politics in Portugal is just different like that, and we all like to do things differently, have a different stance upon things. Obviously, I think if Varandas wins, then I'm sure he'll gain some supporters, more than he does now, and certainly way more than what he used to have at the start of the season and going back. But I still think there'll be division there. There's lots of things to pick as to. I think there's a debate going on right now as to who's the real. Who's responsible for Sporting's fantastic season so far? Is Varandas like a genius after all of a sudden, or is there more to it? I know a lot of people will attribute the success to Ruben Amorim, who more or less has been faultless in terms of the message he conveys to his players, and the players go out there and do their job. Obviously, Varandas will like to take credit for actually going and bringing Ruben Amorim into the squad himself, because I remember there was a lot of people that were criticising the amount of money that they forked out for such an inexperienced manager who now is leading the table. But even then, I think there's lots of instances during the transfer market of players that Sporting wanted to bring into the club. Varandas, Jorge Viana, the director of football. And it was actually Ruben Amorim who said, "No, I don't want this player. This player doesn't really fit the model." So there are instances there. And I know Jean Pellier is another player who was set to leave for so long throughout the entire summer. It was only when negotiations failed that he was reintegrated into the squad. And that one was about to go above Ruben Amorim's head. Like, he had no choice no choice in that. And sometimes you just think, imagine if Jean Pellier had left Sporting, would Sporting be the same team they are today?
Yeah.
And just one simple decision that was pretty much set. Everyone was expecting Jean Pellier to leave. So there's lots of little if, buts, and maybes attached to it. When it comes to judging how well Varandas has done, I'm sure a lot of people can remind others continuously about this situation. Obviously, they support other presidents, other attitudes in terms of leadership. But yeah, I think it's part of the division will never go. Basically,
Yeah,
I think it'll always be there.
Yeah, it'll be there, and I think people that don't like Varandas, if he does something stupid, like all of a sudden if he decides to not listen to Ruben Amorim, and it looks like that happens, and it looks like there's a negative impact on the team, then he'll quickly feel the heat. I almost attribute it kind of to look at Luis Vieira at Benfica, where when Jorge first came to the club and we finally won that title after not winning for so long, it kind of felt for a while there, even though we weren't winning, it was kind of Jorge Jesus's team, and he was kind of running his team, and he had a big say. And if we signed someone he didn't like, he made it very well known he wouldn't even play it. So it was either his way or the highway. And part of sending Jorge Jesus away and refusing to renew his contract and all the other stuff felt very much like Luis Vieira as a president wanting to have more of a say on the 11, and that really kind of led us down a very bad path as a club. And on the same note is maybe having Varandas take the wheel off. If Ruben Amorim is doing a good job, let the guy do his job. And but sometimes it's interesting. And I will say Ruben Amorim to someone would be lying if they said, "Oh, I knew this guy was going to kill at Sporting," because the truth of the matter is, rookie manager killed it at Braga. He did above average, which you expect at Braga. He was doing amazing, but that price tag for such a young manager, everyone was rightfully ripping Varandas a new one, saying, "What the heck are you doing?" But the way the way he's turned it around as a manager. So would you say Ruben Amorim is if you were to kind of say, okay, let me pick one reason, would you mainly attribute it to him?
I think he plays a massive part for sure, and his willingness to obviously look towards the younger crop, the young players. It's kind of been a perfect storm. As you said, you were talking about that attitude that young players have, and that's perhaps missing at Benfica. I think a lot of the Sporting youngsters in the team right now have their mentality is spot on, and as much as even Ruben Amorim will like to say, we're not huge title favourites, as much as all that sort of thing is said, when it comes to crunch time and it's 0-0 or 1-1 or something, there's just a belief in the young players that you can just see it, they really want success, and they want it now, and it's been faultless. I think it's been the perfect storm, the combination of the young players coming through, wanting to fight for the shirt, wanting their place in top level football, and the manager, of course, who's more or less given them the fuel to blow up. So I'd say it's both the players and the manager for sure.
On the chat I had with Bruno, we talked about something, and again, this a don't shoot the messenger kind of item, but the topic of how one of the things that's hurting Porto and Benfica is there's a very big factor, the 12th man, which is the fans really can push those teams on. And the expectation that Benfica is to win the league, the expectation is Porto is to win the league, and that the fans, sometimes it can be a detriment, but they tend to be more of a rah, rah, rah kind of thing. And in recent times, because of all the struggles at Sporting and the divisions and things of sort, it hasn't been as nice of an atmosphere, I guess you could say. And part of it sometimes was even directed at players, it's directed at let's say, verandas and other things of the sort. But do you feel like this shutdown situation where you can't have fans has provided Ruben Amorim to work with a squad without any white noise, I guess you could say, to kind of have them hyper focused in a sense, and this is where me and Bruno kind of disagreed, where he felt that if fans come back at the end of the season, that it would be a bad thing for Sporting, which in my opinion, I disagree, because I feel the momentum Sporting has, I bet you if you open the gates, these people will be over the moon at the idea of being part of seeing their team win a title. I don't think you'll see jeering or booing, and if they have a bad result, I got a feeling these people are still going to be like, we got a big buffer, come on, keep going kind of thing. So, but do you think that that not having fans around, it sounds terrible for me to say that, in the genesis of Ruben Amorim building this team has helped, or do you think it's been no difference?
It's difficult to say because obviously the harmony at Sporting, there's no point denying it. It wasn't the best, and I wouldn't say it's something that's solely attributed to Sporting, because I see it everywhere. I see it at Benfica, I see it at Porto. When things aren't going well,
they get nasty quick.
they turn sour quite quickly. Yeah, but obviously Sporting has that historical side to it where they haven't won for 18 or so years. So the hunger, success. Sometimes it plays with the emotions that little bit more. Obviously, Fernandes isn't the most popular figure at Sporting as well. We did have the example when we did have fans back in our last title race, which was against Benfica, obviously in 2015, the first Jorge Jesus season. And the fans were brilliant. They backed Sporting all the way, and I think Sporting perhaps wouldn't have done so well and gone toe to toe with Benfica had it not been for the fans in that final stretch of the season. They put on like an impressive run of form. I think many would argue even that towards that very last corner, Sporting were the better side of the two Lisbon outfits. So it all depends. Obviously, I think if the fans come in now, as you said, the momentum is on Sporting side. Everything is all lovely and rosy at the moment. And whether you like Fernandes or not, whether you like the players that are playing or not, Sporting's doing very well, and I think that's totally undeniable. We have a fantastic chance to win the title, and if you're not backing that, then I don't know what kind of fan are you? You know what I mean? So I think it will definitely be a big boost if we see the fans come in. Maybe it might even be the ingredient that's missing. You never know what happens. Football changes around very quickly. We might Sporting young players might need that little push, but let's see what happens. I think it could definitely help. On the flip side, it might actually be more detrimental to see fans return to to Benfica or Porto, because obviously,
if they come to Benfica, it's gonna be a goddamn riot, and rightfully so, because the frustration on our fans' side, right? Like, it'd be almost the exact opposite. I don't know about Porto's situation. I don't know how irate they'd be. I know they're not happy.
Yeah, theirs is a bit.
Theirs is like a mixed bag, where there's unhappiness, and it sounds so terrible to say this, but because they're still ahead of Benfica, there's like this weird buffering. If it was roles reversed, where we're still doing shit and we're third place, or we're not winning the title even after all the money we spent, but we're still ahead of Porto, as horrible as it sounds, there's this weird buffer that happens. I think especially for us, the money spent and expectations and how nasty the election was and the carryover from it, and the feeling of people's voices being silenced. You're going to hear those voices when they have a chance
Yeah,
to talk, right? So
yeah,
I gotta say, like, it depends on individuals and their backgrounds. I know in my case, I was born in Portugal, came to Canada. I'm in a very big Portuguese community. If you have a big family, if you're around a big Portuguese community, and you got a big circle, you're gonna know fans from different clubs. And I got a lot of family, a lot of good friends that like sporting. So there is a very awkward part of me where I'm a Benfica. I always want to see Benfica win. Yes, we're rivals, but also seeing people I love and relatives and friends I've known for many, many years that have not been able to see a title. And as long as they have, and I've seen those periods, whether it was many years ago against Porto where they came close and it wasn't not close enough, and that one run, especially that first season with George Jesus, where Sporting came close, but we nipped it at the end, right? It's always like so close yet not there. There's part of me which I've been enjoying this moment of watching people I love in a sense, and I'm talking about not talking about fans I don't know, but people relatives that are sporting fans, and kind of seeing them get excited about the idea of winning. So I have to ask you
hmm
because you haven't seen this in a long time, and no one else has either on the sporting side. You guys win it. What's it going to be like for you? Like, what's going to be like? Are you mentally getting ready for that? Are you starting to kind of visualize it? Or are you trying to block it out? What's in your head right now?
yeah, yeah. Obviously, you imagine it, and what I've been thinking about like lately is obviously, when someone wins in Portugal, you got the usual parties like cars in the streets and something and stuff like that, and obviously in times we live in now with Corona and all that, we're not sure if that will be possible in a few months' time, which takes a little bit of the shine out of it.
Yeah.
But it'll be sweet nonetheless. We've waited 18 years, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people that won't care too much about the regulations, and they'll be out in their numbers to celebrate. It's exciting. It's a bit surreal sometimes, obviously. We've waited such a long time to be in. Uh, we're not there yet, but we're in a comfortable position, I'd say, at the moment. Um, we've got lots of work to do still. So like personally, half of me wants it's that typical head versus heart battle where my heart wants to dream and envisage the title lifting, um, pouring water over all those jokes that rival fans send your way and stuff like that. But obviously my head wants to say, calm down. There's still 12 games to go. 1, 2 bad results, anything can happen. We've still got that Bonilla case hanging over our heads a little bit. Whether
Yeah, I've heard of.
whether we'll
I've been
get
hearing
points
about that.
or not.
I think.
Um,
What do you? I've seen that. Part of me, it sounds terrible. I'll get a lot of hate for this. I almost kind of feel like you guys would be hard done. I get the rules are the rules, and rules should be followed. And if it's a case that shit was done wrong, shit was done wrong. But it would just feel so dirty to not to lose a bunch of points for that reason and somehow just narrowly miss a title. It just would feel it'd feel wrong,
yeah,
especially after the way that it isn't a case where you have no offense to Benfica, no offense to Porto. Neither team of those two have deserved it. You guys have deserved it
yeah,
so far. And if all of a sudden there's a technicality that puts you back in the dog race and then you just lose out due to the technicality, um, yeah. Do you think
yeah.
how serious do you think that's going to be though? Because I keep seeing more and more of that in the news. Do you think that's gonna? You think that's actually going to potentially be a risk?
It's difficult because I don't think I've ever seen a situation quite like this. But part of me would like to believe that he was played um with the confidence, with the assurance that it was fine. And hopefully, with time that will just be clarified. I don't think there'll be like a reversal on it. Obviously I'm biased because I'm a sporting fan, but it to me it really stinks a bit to see like Benfica charge through with that complaint, so to speak, because the guy played 10, 15 minutes of a game. He didn't really have any sort of effect on the end result, if we're honest. I think Benfica, it's out of pure hatred for the club and for the situation.
Now, do you think
And
it's only Benfica? Don't you think there would be Porto people behind the scenes pushing for this also, or no?
I mean, yeah, Porto will certainly be jumping on it now, but I think I remember at the time when it was like when the
Because at
complaint
the
was
time
initially lodged.
it was Benfica versus Sporting, so it was the lead up to that match. So I get that Benfica was more in the
Yeah,
spotlight because it was us two. You're not allowed playing that player. You take it to a side court and all the other stuff that goes on for you to get the blessing for it. And and I know that Benfica is going to be tied to this situation in that case. But I really don't think we'd benefit at all. It'd be, if anything, if it's going to sound terrible, I'd rather Sporting win than Porto because Porto's won a shitload of times over the last couple decades. Um, and if this happens, it's more likely that Porto's going to steal the title, not us. So I would think that, I don't know. I haven't heard much from
yeah,
Benfica
that's true.
fans in my knowledge pushing for it, but I am curious to kind of see what comes from it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as I said, part of me would like to think that it was done with confidence, knowing that it's not going to be a problem and that complaints will come. But you know, at the end of the day, it will be Sporting will be vindicated in their decision to play him. It was a strange one, to be fair, because um, like I don't feel that game even. I don't feel like Sporting even needed Jean Pillier in the final minutes of that game. Of course, Amorim was looking to steady the team. But I think in terms of control, I think we had Benfica relatively like in terms of like fending away the danger that you had. I think Sporting were doing quite well. Obviously, we weren't attacking um, that much, and we nicked the goal at the end. But in terms of controlling your threat, I think we did that quite well. We probably didn't even need Billy on. So I was surprised to see him come on in the end.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Um,
I really think that it was a situation where we weren't being able to penetrate much that game, and the game was pretty balanced on that side where, and yeah, you nicked it at the end, but again, it'd be very unfortunate. I think it'd be very unfortunate if somehow that comes out, and for people who, I'll put up some comments on this explaining it of what's going on, but it's really a case where player signed, player not supposed to was said he wasn't allowed to play. Sporting went through a tribunal process to get approval, and they got approval. And the argument is that, well, there's a different process they're supposed to go. So right now it's bureaucracy being fought out, saying they didn't go
yeah,
about the right way of doing it, and because they broke the rules. And then the Liga also doesn't make things better because our Liga is notorious for being slow or incompetent or causing more confusion than calmness. And so the Liga itself has also kind of made comments saying, well, technically, no, he shouldn't have played because if we had to say, and all this other stupid things that kind of will just make it more convoluted. But controversies aside, I think based on where the standings are and if things keep going the way they are, obviously you see the direction it's going. I got to have a little fun with you real quickly. Uh, do you remember, like, if you go back to the last time you guys won a title, what it was like?
yeah. I remember it very well.
I
Um,
Yeah, I've been having some
yeah,
fun at the idea of kind of like, and take no offense to this, it's just the difference in eras. Like
mhm.
watching today versus, like, what would you explain the differences between watching Sporting win back then versus today would be? Like in terms of how much time has passed, how technology has changed. Like there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. So you
Mm.
celebrating Sporting would have been more of a friends and family event, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I remember it fondly. Obviously, I've got a cousin who's like similar age to me, 2 years older than me, and I used to go around his house pretty much every week, and we'd do everything that crazy mad kids would do: play football inside the house with like a balloon or a slipper or something like that. And when we used to do that, he was Ricardo Quaresma, I was Jardel, that sort of thing. We were sporting mad, so um, that was always like very big. So yeah, I remember it like very well at that era. Probably one of my favorite teams ever. Obviously, um, nostalgia kind of helps that. I think when I compare that team to this team, I'll probably remember that team more fondly because obviously you're growing up, you're beginning to idolize people. You don't really do that at this age. and you obviously pay more attention to the way football teams play, so you're more critical of what you see. So if I was to compare the two sides, I'd obviously say, the 2002 team was, more spectacular to watch. But obviously, I don't know to what degree, being 8 years old and now being 27 years old, it's different. You view football differently. But I think this one will be special as well, because we've got, as I said, we've got lots of young players playing for the first team, and that's what sporting's all about in terms of finding their place in international football. That's what sporting stands for. We're the only football team in the world to have two Ballon d'Or winners in Figo and Ronaldo. Ronaldo is the player that he is, breaking records on a monthly basis sometimes. So we're very proud of that history, that line of production, and I think if we win the title this year, it'll be the perfect representation of that. You don't really get that often. You don't see that often in modern day football. I think the last team that did something similar was Ajax, and beyond that, I can't really think of many more examples of that kind of ethos of playing young players from the academy.
Yeah, you tend to see kind of this challenge that, and I'll say from Benfica's perspective, we had that moment with Vitória with a bunch of young guys that we brought in, but now it seems like we've kind of turned that back. Jorge Jesus is notorious for not being a fan of the academy. Like when he went to Sporting, he kind of started turning his back on that also, right?
Yeah.
So it's neat to see. It's a new chapter if it happens, because there is a bit of obviously pride from Sporting Issues, obviously Figu's and Ronaldo's and things of sort. But part of it also comes with a bit of banter from rival fans saying that you're living in a time period of the early 2000s of success, and today your celebration is still something you did almost 20 years ago, right? And that goes to a huge credit of Ronaldo's playing stamina, the fact that he's a megastar today, and therefore he continues to kind of be a representation of it. But I feel if Sporting does win, in my take, it gives the club a clean slate to kind of build a new future, right? Not obviously the past is always very important. It's important for all clubs. Every club hangs on to it, all their successes they've done. But it'll be interesting, man. I on the situation of celebrations, I'm curious what happens. I'm an eternal optimistic person, especially if I look at the UK. They're over 10% vaccination rate at the moment, and it's picking up further. So the UK is doing the best out of all the European countries or Western countries, as you could say. And if that momentum continues and you continue to have such a large amount of people vaccinated, and it's just snowballing and drastically increasing month over month, still got a few months to go. Portugal, while it's a little bit slower, they're over 3% already. The population, almost 4% of the population covered, and they're also starting to see an increase on that side. I do get curious if come May, depending on when the situation is, if we had certain shutdowns now to kind of regress the virus, and you're seeing it now, and it's more batten down the hatches, do less activity, but then that leads to that kind of situation where it kind of subsides. They open things up again, plus with the vaccines, as it stays subsided enough that you can actually do more. Now, if Sporting does win, you're out of the UK, obviously, right? So would there be any celebration? What would you do? Like, give me an idea. Like, what would you be doing yourself? Would you be, right now, if it was open season, just booking a flight to Portugal? It would be your game plan. Are you still keeping an eye on that, or what would you be looking to do in a few months' time?
I mean, if it's all clear, then yeah, I mean that's always an option. But I've got lots of sporting like family and friends here as well, so I would imagine something special. It'll be summertime as well, more or less. So maybe a barbecue or something. Those kind of celebrations. But it'd be nice to touch down in at Alvalade and see what's going on there. Yeah, but I'd probably say it would probably be like something within family.
Yeah,
That's usually how we do it. Yeah,
that'd be good, man. And then
and then we'd obviously see all the all the mad cases going on like on TV.
Yeah,
It's always good fun to watch.
you just kind of hope that they get a handle on it, and every area is going through different levels of different waves, and some people are they're entering new waves while other ones are shutting down waves. But yeah, hopefully, come a few months, it's just we're on a track now where things hopefully are getting better and better. Anything else you'd want to add into this? Like we got a lot of people they're Benfiquistas that obviously watch the show, but we also got a lot of neutrals that watch it for fun and things of the sort. Anything else you think I missed, or anything else that you'd look at this season so far, the midway check-in about Sporting, that surprised you the most about this Liga so far?
Well, probably another thing in terms of comparing, I think the side of today versus the side of 2002, and I think this is something that Benfica felt, even with all the quality that they have in their squad. I'd say that we are living in unique times. There are no fans. The games come thick and fast. It's a very different season to a normal season. A part of me also wants to believe that a lot of the smaller teams in the league are that little bit better. We see teams like Paços Ferreira, Vitória de Guimarães, Rio Ave. They all play like very good football. And there's a few more that also play very good football and are underperforming massively, like Famalicão. Teams with like real quality in their team. So it's the Portuguese league is not as easy to win as some may believe. And I think the proof is there for all to see. Porto, they play very well when they're on their game, but they also struggle a fair bit. Benfica have an abundance of quality right through their squad, but they're struggling to piece it together. That like the quality just doesn't bail them out as much as they'd like to in a league like this, and I think it's good. I think it's positive. Hopefully, a lot of teams will pick up and continue to make this division a lot more competitive than it is.
I'm going to release this likely on the weekend, so it's not going to go out today. So we play Arsenal tomorrow. So when people are watching this, that game would already taken place. And just to add insult to injury, not only do I got a guy that's a Sporting fan on a Benfica show, he's also an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you. Now we got two legs, so neither of us know what the heck this first leg's going to be. But what's your your level when you saw Arsenal match up with Benfica? Because you have a different perspective. I'm talking to Arsenal fans lately, and I've talked to a variety of them, and they're very kind of distraught with their situation in the EPL, distraught with their club, and they know Benfica by name, but they don't know about what Benfica is actually doing this season. So I've met a lot of them that kind of go, oh my God, this is going to be a train wreck. We're going to get knocked out of Europa and yada, yada, yada. And I look at them and say, yeah, you really haven't looked in our backyard to see the mess we're in right now. But you've seen both sides of the train wreck and the car crash that's happening at both clubs. Where I know obviously there's a rivalry with you and Benfica and Sporting and all that fun stuff, but looking at the Arsenal Benfica lineup, what's your gut saying? Obviously, I know you're likely pulling more for Arsenal. Do you think Arsenal has their game together? Are you feeling confident about this tie with Arsenal against Benfica?
Yeah, I would personally say that Arsenal are favourites, simply because, but at the time of the draw, obviously, you are a little bit worried, and especially being a Sporting fan, you never want to lose to Benfica. That's added into the mix. But Arsenal weren't doing very well at the time as well. I think since then we sort of picked up form a little bit more, and it's kind of tailed off lately a little bit too. But we got an important victory against a very good Leeds United side at the weekend. And something that Arsenal have been doing quite well is that certain big games, and I would consider the game against Benfica a big one. Again, certain big games, Arsenal are really turning up for them. There's been occasions where we've played Manchester United, Chelsea, If you look back at the games against Liverpool and the FA Cup win, that sort of run, Arsenal have really done a job on these big teams that were overwhelming favourites in comparison to us. Benfica will be a big game, but they're not overwhelming favourites. I think it's something that can go either way. By the same token, historically, Jorge Jesus, sometimes he does really well in these big games. I think a lot of you will remember that run he had to the final where he knocked out the likes of Juventus and Tottenham. Sometimes he rises to the occasion. And if you're looking for the Champions League, if you're looking for that qualification, I think Europa League might just be the avenue for you guys. If you win that, and I'm sure you can look at your squad and see that you've got the talent there to win it. Tournament football sometimes is very different to league football. You only get a couple of games, and sometimes things can click into place for you in that sort of way. I think Benfica should definitely be aiming to win Europa League and fight with the likes of Arsenal and other sides. So I definitely see Benfica, really turning up. I expect them to turn up. So it should be a good game. It could go either way, over two legs. But obviously, I will back my boys. Do the job.
No, fair enough. And I'll be honest, if I'm not a betting man, and if I was a betting man, I would not be betting on Benfica at this stage, given how chaotic it's been. It's just a very interesting clash between these two teams that are very bipolar this season, where I do feel that on their day, and I look at Benfica versus Porto. Benfica didn't get the win, but man, did they play well at the time. And I find sometimes when it does come to these bigger games, sometimes they wake up a little bit. That this is where maybe that extra motivation from that these players do have talent. And man, Arsenal's at the top EPL side. I know they're having a shit season, but they're full of talent also. So if they decide to show up, it'll be an exciting match. One last thing before I let you go, and I know we focus obviously a lot on Sporting Benfica and things of the sort. If you take a quick peek, the one we didn't talk much about is Braga. We talked a bit about Porto. Do you think Braga is going to manage to hold on to that third place, or do you think they'll slip away?
It's a tricky one. It depends what they do in the Europa League. I know they'll be keen to make an impression. They've got a big game on their hands as well.
Yeah, with Roma, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it depends how far they go in that tournament. They're not favourites against Roma, but you never know in football sometimes. Just what they could do. They're a squad that I think in terms of talent, they're a little bit inferior to what they were last year with Ruben Amorim, but Carlos Carrega is a very good manager, and they still play a respectable level of football. It's still, the quality is still there. They are, however, without two or three important players. They've got David Carmo, who's just obviously had the nasty fracture that he had against Porto. Paulinho, who's now transferred to Sporting. We'll see how much that affects them, and with the added combination of playing Europa League football, depending on their result against Roma, we'll see how far their squad stretches in terms of durability. But for now they don't look amazing, but they look solid, and solid enough to cause Benfica and Porto some problems. Historically, they always have done, but they've just lacked that finish. But we'll see what happens this year.
And then one last then on the Braga, keeping on that note, they've had a pretty interesting, I don't know how much you've watched the Porto Braga series of matches lately with the Liga plus the Cup, the Taça Portugal. What do you think of that tie? I know it's drawn up at the moment. Do you think Braga's going to pull it off, or do you think Porto's going to nick them at the end? Or
I don't know. It's as you say, it's a cup game. Anything can happen. Anything goes in a cup game. I think Braga have done very well against Porto lately. Not just this season, last season too. So I think they've really made it historically, of course, you would have said, yeah, Porto will do it.
Yeah.
But in the last year or so, Braga really made it very difficult to predict. It's a tough one. And sometimes that could be quite beneficial for smaller teams as well. Well, for any team actually. When you play, when they played not long ago in the league as well. So when you keep playing the same team, what you find is, your players sort of rise up to that level. They get used to that level. They're not caught by surprise so much by how outstanding you are. And as I said, Porto are a team that generally plays the same way all the time as well. They don't really have a plan B. They come at you, they press. They want to be super physical. So I'm sure Braga will have studied Porto very carefully, as they have done throughout the last year or so. And they'll give it their best shot when it comes to playing against Porto, and they can definitely cause them some trouble and go all the way to the final.
Yeah, man, and I guess that's a big testament to Braga, and it's no offense to the club, but historically speaking, I agree with you. It's if you have Braga versus a big three, 9 times out of 10, you still expect a big three to advance. It's still, you think it's going to be they'll give you a run for your money, and the big three will persevere in the end. But in recent times, it's really become a coin toss. So when you're seeing them, and I've quite impressed by them personally, just because I think what they were doing, Ruben Amorim, was the right track. Once they lost him and they lost some players, I still feel they've been able to kind of not actually lose their footing. Because sometimes when clubs kind of feel like they step up, they get knocked a peg down. It does feel like they've stepped up, and they're refusing to kind of step down in a sense. They're trying to kind of keep that level going. And yeah, I'm curious, man. And it'll be interesting to see if the Portuguese side's good for our Liga. If Benfica, I know you're an Arsenal fan, but Benfica does something against Arsenal, the surprise today with Porto against Juventus, and now you don't know what's going to happen. You still favor Juventus. You got Ronaldo, you got a talented side, but the fact is it's a one-game match with an advantage towards Porto, right? So you have a few more of these sides pull a few surprises, and you have a situation where, again, I don't want to call the title race over. I don't expect Benfica to win it at all. But the glaring truth is that Sporting, unless there's a freak event, is likely winning it. Yes, times have changed this time around, but before you would have gone to a playoff stage. Now you have multiple group stages and things of sort. This league could hopefully build upon it, right? So it's one of these things where we love to hate on each other, love to shit on each other. We're rival fans and all on rival clubs, but we're only as strong as our rivals to that extent. And I think if collectively the league keeps improving, it means that Benfica has to step up and be a better club. Sporting has to be a better club. So does Porto, meaning if the other teams are pushing those teams, and if you're getting pushed, maybe you do better in Europe, and it just kind of manifests into a bigger item, right? That's the dream for our Liga, right? All right, buddy, man, I really appreciate you taking the evening. Anything else you'd want to add on here, or you still what are you up to nowadays?
No,
I didn't get a chance to add about that. I know you write a lot. You love writing. Are you still doing stuff with the 360 guys? Or?
Yeah. Sometimes I hop on.
Yeah.
With the 160 lads, and they're doing their thing. Obviously, their time zone's a bit different. It's similar to yours, so it's difficult to catch me.
Yeah.
With work commitments and all that. But in terms of freelancing, I'm still with Portugal and Portugal.net.
Yeah, with Tom and everyone there. Yeah.
Yeah, still doing that, and talking random nonsense on Twitter as well. Everyone knows where to find me.
Yeah, exactly, buddy. And it's if you guys don't follow Patrick, hit him up. Bust his balls a bit. He's a nice guy. He's honestly a nice guy. I've had the pleasure of talking to you now for 7 years ago now or some shit. It's insane. So time flies. I shouldn't so much write watch now. But hopefully Benfica pulls a miracle and wins it, and we get to have some fun, but I highly doubt it. And I think you'll have a big ass smile. I'm expecting you to be like, I was looking at you and I'm like waiting for you to get very giddy. Like, at what point are you like stupidly giddy? I don't see you there yet. I see you almost there. There's other Sporting fans I know that are very self-deprecating, that are like, oh, we're going to fuck it up. But what I've been finding funny the last couple of weeks, especially the last couple of weeks, is I'm seeing these guys break saying, oh, fuck, I think we're going to do it. and I'm starting to see the excitement levels build. And if I take away the Benfica top and I take away the Benfica, I'm getting a kick out of watching each one of these guys that are so pessimistic for the last many years finally snap and say, fuck it, we got this kind of thing, right? I don't know if I've seen you snap yet. I don't know if you're there yet. It seems like you're optimistic, but you're nervous. I can kind of see a little bit.
I'm quite good at keeping my cool. I'll be like this until the final minute. We've probably already wrapped the title up by then, but until the very final minute before celebrations ensue, I'm always in this persona. That's just me.
But then, as soon as you guys do win, and there's going to be a clip on this video that everyone sadly has seen, you're going to be out streaking and everything, right? You're going to that's it. Quack is off, you're out and about.
Potentially. Although police will probably be waiting for me now that that's been said, so...
Well, they don't know exactly where you are. It's the UK. You guys do that all the time, right? You guys are always out and about doing that. All right, man. Once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, Patrick. It's been a blast, buddy.
Yeah, it's great having, great coming on show, talking a bit of football, of course, and feeding my knowledge into rival football. Don't usually get to talk about Benfica too much on podcasts, so great to do that as well.
That's good, man. Once you know what happens though if you talk about Benfica and you did it at the beginning of the season, good shit happens, right?
Exactly.
Look where
so
you are now, right? So
I'll have to probably make this a monthly thing.
Well, as long as I'm gonna have to cut this out if this shit keeps happening though. I'm okay with the 1 year, but if this keeps happening year over year, we got to figure out what the fuck's going wrong here. We got to reverse it. I'll start showing up on that 160 show over there to screw them up. All right, man. Thank you so much. You have a great night.